Lorraine Lee, welcome to Dominate Your Day. It's so
Thank you
great
for
to have
having
you
me.
here.
I'm so excited.
That's right. And you've written an amazing book, Unforgettable Presence. Get seen, gain influence, and catapult your career. So, talk to us about this book and why you created it. You're a top LinkedIn voice, I know that. You've done some really cool things. So, why did you write this book?
The inspiration behind the book really stemmed from my time at LinkedIn. So I was a founding editor there, worked there for 6 years, worked really hard, worked on high priority projects, was well liked by my colleagues. And you would think that all these things, on paper at least, look like things that would lead to advancement, lead to promotion. But unfortunately, that did not happen for me while I was at LinkedIn, as much as I wanted it to, as much as I wanted to really advance in the company. And so what ended up happening is after I left LinkedIn, after 6 years, I had that time to really reflect, to think back, to talk to mentors, talk to peers, and ask like, what could I have done differently? What went wrong that I wasn't able to grow in the company? And what it really boiled down to was presence in terms of how I was being perceived and seen. And then I joined Prezi a few months later, and COVID happened a few months later. And then I realized, oh, presence isn't just about how we're seen, but it's also where we're seen because so many of us went virtual. And now virtual presence was a huge aspect of our overall presence as well. And so through those experiences, that eventually led me to the book. Writing a book was not on my vision board, but I'm so glad I did it. What ended up happening was a publisher reached out to me on LinkedIn, and then a few
Wow.
other publishers reached out to me, and I just thought, this is the universe telling me it's time to write this,
Time.
even if I'm a little bit nervous, even if I'm feeling a little bit imposter syndrome. I need to take advantage of this opportunity.
I'm so glad you're saying that because I see here in your bio that you call yourself an introvert. And I love when people can say, I can be an introvert, but I can also be an extrovert. And I find I need energy. And it's how to recognize those people in your co-working space, in your who you work with, and who needs some time, who needs that opportunity to build their presence. Who Because the person that's extrovert's going to come in and just take over, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, wait, that. So how did you navigate all that when you started getting this information from people about developing your presence?
For me, it was a big mindset shift. So, what I'm trying to do with this book is redefine what presence means. If we think about presence in a more traditional sense, a lot of people are like, oh, executive presence, maybe I'm of a certain seniority level. It's how I'm showing up in the high stakes presentation in the boardroom. And when we anchor presence to that, it can feel very overwhelming, limiting, intimidating.
Mhm.
And what I'm trying to do is say presence is, yes, that's one piece of it. Executive presence certainly is. But presence is more holistic. It's about being intentional and strategic about all the touch points, the smaller touch points that we have in a day, but the more frequent touch points, because those
Mm.
really are the things that we have to pay attention to in order to build that presence, that consistency, that brand over time, and not just, oh my gosh, that one big presentation I have a quarter. So my hope with this is that by understanding how presence can be thought of a little bit differently, that it's more empowering and gives people the confidence through very actionable tactical frameworks and tips to take the good work that they're already doing, up level it a little bit more, and then that's how you start creating your unforgettable presence.
So were you creating this for yourself as you were kind of like getting this information, or how did this happen?
It was, yeah, it's the book that I wish I would have had in my 20s, in my early career. I share my challenges, the stories, because I hope that other people, when they read this book, they don't have to go through the same things that I did. Unfortunately, we're not taught a lot of these skills at work, and if we're lucky enough to have a great manager who trains us, wonderful, but most of us are sort of figuring it out, fending for ourselves.
So what do you think are the common mistakes that people make when they're trying to build their presence?
The first one is being being too grandiose with it. So what I said about executive presence. Oh my gosh, I'm just going to focus really hard on this one big moment and not think about the little things.
Mhm.
Related to that, I start off the book. The first chapter is mindset and career brand. The second chapter is video presence. The third chapter is LinkedIn presence. And these are the more untraditional, unconventional pieces of advice that help build your presence. And I put them in the beginning for a reason because they're untraditional, but super, super important. And so, two mistakes I would say. One, not being thoughtful about your video and virtual presence and making sure you are coming across how you want to be seen. And then
Mhm.
also neglecting LinkedIn and using it or thinking about it as just a job site because it is so much more. I mean, we met through LinkedIn. That's how you
Yeah.
found me. And lots of
Yeah.
opportunities can come your way. Even if you're happy in your job, there's a lot of relationships you can build, things you can learn, just so much goodness there.
Well, and you have 6 years of being one of the founding people there.
Yeah.
So, what are the lessons that you wish people knew when they got on LinkedIn? Because I hear this a lot, Lorraine. People like you are leaving their corporate careers and then they're going and starting their own businesses, or they're joining a smaller business, or they're doing something else, and they're going, oh my gosh, I don't know how to navigate this LinkedIn thing. And so, what is your advice to people like that?
That is a totally normal feeling. So that's the first thing I would say to
Good.
normalize it. Because yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many things you can't do.
Mhm.
So what I would say is first you start off with optimizing your profile. That's really the foundational piece.
Mhm.
Content, that's the next phase, right? So I think people sometimes they get nervous, like, oh my gosh, I have to start posting every day, or I have to be a content creator or an influencer, a thought leader from day one. Not the case at all. So first work on your profile, make sure that's all optimized and that so if people come to your profile and your LinkedIn, they will have a positive impression of you and be able to more quickly assess, is this person credible? Is this person someone who
Mhm.
I might want to collaborate with or work with? The powerful thing about LinkedIn is that people can really form that impression of you without ever needing to meet them. And so I think that's a very special thing. So we want to take advantage of that.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
The second piece is now, okay, you have the profile. Now we want to start creating content. And that doesn't mean posting 4 or 5 times a week. I think LinkedIn recommends starting at four, but I think for someone new to this, very, very overwhelming, and will lead to burnout. So, what
Mhm.
is the lowest goal you can set for yourself? Let's say once a month. We can all
Mhm.
post once a month, right? Come up with that post. Okay, great. No problem. Let's bump that up twice a month and keep building from there. But really, to remember that LinkedIn is a long game. It's not about going viral. I think the most special part about LinkedIn is the relationships that you can build and the people
Mhm.
you can meet.
Absolutely. You're in San Francisco. I'm in Dallas. Are you in San Francisco?
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in Dallas. So it's you just meet people all over the world. It's
Yes.
amazing. You also said that today you've written a book and I'm writing a book. So it's like I'm
Yes.
like, Lorraine, tell me what did you learn? And she goes, today I posted on LinkedIn, right? So
Yeah.
you posted your top 10 tips. Now, was this something you had been thinking about and you kind of planned it? How do you manage your content?
Definitely planning ahead of time. I used to be, when I was in corporate, I would sit down every Sunday and think, okay, I just have to come up with 4 to 5 ideas for the week. And, the weekend, you think you have all this time, but then you're tired, recovering from your activities, and you're preparing for the week before. So it just wasn't great. But that's what I
Mhm.
initially did. And then I started my business and I thought, okay, I need to be more structured about this. I'm going to set a block of hour, 2 hour, whatever it is, to really get in the content zone and then create that content. I think that's so much more helpful.
Mhm.
It creates or reduces stress rather if you are someone who's like, I don't know how I'm going to keep up with my posting. And I think you just create better content. At least for me, you just create better content that way because you have some time to think about it and you're not feeling rushed every day. Now there are some people who they log on to LinkedIn that day and they're like, I have an idea, I'm just going to write out this post, and that's great. But for them, I'm not that person.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, just to be able to do it on the fly and run that way is hard. And so being able to have that content and get in the zone, I love that.
Yeah,
I really think that is great advice. What are the other things that you wish people knew as they're launching and they're coming out and they're building this presence that you had to do? You kind of had to learn for yourself that now it's kind of reinforced you teaching, how to have this presence either online or offline because it's all
sure.
all up, right? It's
Yeah,
3D,
all of
right?
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. The one thing I'll say about LinkedIn that is a helpful lesson, I think, for a lot of people when I speak about LinkedIn, they have a question for me about I have this idea, but I'm kind of nervous to pose. So one mindset shift I would say is that there's not really anything so original on LinkedIn. And so when you approach it like that, and just know that everyone is taking an idea that exists and putting their own spin on it, or sharing parts of their personality or a story or a
Mhm.
challenge, hopefully that makes it less intimidating. So definitely get out on LinkedIn. If posting is a little bit overwhelming, commenting first is a really wonderful thing to do. It is much lower stakes. You are still developing your thought leadership and expertise and also growing your following. So that's one thing I would say. The second thing I would say is you mentioned, Dana, that I'm an introvert.
Mhm.
And introverts sometimes it can feel like corporate America is just made for the extroverts. It is
Mhm.
not made
Mhm.
for us. And what I talk about in the book is that introverts have so many superpowers. And when we learn what those superpowers are, then we can really lean into those and that's where we
Mhm.
really shine and stand out. It's not trying to imitate being the loudest person in the room because it's just not going to feel good for us. It's not going to have the
Mhm.
best outcome, but we're really great writers and we're great at connecting dots. So after the meeting,
Mhm.
we might say, "Oh, I was processing and I heard what you said here and what you said there, and oh, have we thought about this issue? Or did we talk to this team yet?"
Mhm.
Introverts are also really great public speakers. That one is also some counterintuitive advice that I really love to share because introverts are very thoughtful, they're prepared, they're empathetic, so they know how to connect with audiences. And
Mhm.
so to be able to lean into that. And I think public speaking is one of the best ways to grow your career and stand out. So there's lots of
Yeah.
examples like that, but those are the two that come to mind.
Was there a transformative moment that kind of changed you when you were when you're on this journey of seeing yourself as a shy person or maybe an introvert? Was there something that shaped your perspective on, presence when you were in this mode of kind of discovery?
Mhm.
That just was there one moment in time, a pivotal moment, or was it just a couple of things that happened?
It was a few pivotal moments. Any time that I did something that was scary and got through it, I feel like my confidence definitely increased. And then the more you do that, the more exponential the increase is because now you're just
Mm-hmm.
so used to it and you're willing to take more risks, right? Because you have the data
Mm-hmm.
behind you like, oh, I did that once before. I can do something like this again. So leaving LinkedIn, that was very pivotal because it was a wonderful place to work and it was all I knew pretty much in my career so far. So joining Prezi, being a first-time manager, building my team from the ground up, that was very special and really pushed me to reach that
Mm-hmm.
next level and to grow that confidence. And then while I was at Prezi, taking on this goal, big goal of learning how to public speak better, and not with the goal of having this be my career, but simply because I saw how much more confident and authoritative and just legit, people are who can speak
Mm-hmm.
well. You're like, wow, that person is impressive. And so I wanted that for myself. And so that was another big changing moment. And that is really what led to me seeing, okay, there's some traction with speaking. I became a LinkedIn learning instructor. And then when the layoff happened at the end of 2022, I had enough evidence behind me of, okay, maybe there is something here and I'll give myself 1 year, give myself the chance and just see what I can make of it. And so now I'm 2.5 years in and still going strong.
Yay. So you're speaking, you got the book. Is that, and then consulting, or you do consulting as
I do
well?
some consulting, not as much. Yeah, it's primarily speaking, the book. I do brand deals now sometimes, which also is funny to me. Just thinking, oh, I'm a LinkedIn influencer. But that's been fun as well. So again, like staying open to things because you don't always know what's going to come your way.
So how did shy Lorraine get interviews with Daniel Pink and Kim Scott? And yeah, how did that happen?
Oh my gosh, that was my favorite part actually about writing the book is that I got to interview so many amazing people and leaders who I've admired for a very long time. So I interviewed nearly 3 dozen.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was like the best excuse just to like reach out to someone and just meet them.
What's in the book?
Yeah, so it was a few different ways. So sometimes it was someone I knew. Sometimes it was someone with 2 degrees of separation. So we had a mutual person in common, and so I would use that social proof of, oh, I am interviewing that person we know in common. Would you also be interested in being interviewed? And then sometimes it is purely cold outreach and being
Wow.
willing to take that chance and to get rejected. And I certainly got rejected or ghosted by many other people I reached out to, but then also some amazing people like you mentioned, Dan and Kim and many more said yes. So you have to be willing to put yourself out there and be willing to get that no if you want to get a yes.
I love that. So, was there one surprising thing from some of your interviews that was a useful insight you gained from one of the conversations with any of these? And it didn't have to be a big name person, it could be somebody that,
Sure, yeah.
yeah.
The thing with interviewing so many people, you don't know how every conversation is going to turn out. And I wasn't sure. I was like, is everyone gonna teach me something new?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, lovely person. I got a takeaway from everyone, and that's why I did include a quote from at least one or two quotes from everyone because I wanted to make sure they were highlighted.
Sure.
And one observation I had was imposter syndrome was a trend that appeared across many of the people I interviewed, even the really successful. Well, they're all successful, but even the people you might
Really?
not expect. Yeah, and so that was very, I don't know, comforting in a way. You're just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, it's not just me, it's everyone, which
They're
we know
human too.
inherently, but to hear it from them, you're like, okay, yeah, we're all in this together.
Wow. So when you got this book out and you got through these interview process with all these amazing people, did the book take a different turn based on what you're getting, like about imposter syndrome in some of these places, or did it stay on this track of these figuring out the presence of who you are authentically and being that
It's
person?
yeah, it stayed on track. I do think there were stories and tidbits where I thought, oh, okay, maybe we should do like a breakout box and really feature
Mm-hmm.
it. But thankfully, everyone had so many. I cover so many different topics in this book, and so I was able to find a place for everyone.
That's so neat. So as you think about big leaders or large, people that are in a pretty substantial role, how do you advise them to be have executive presence that resonates with people? What is your best advice for them?
Executive presence has really transformed over the years, which I think is good. It's changed for the better. So, in the book, I talk about some data that was published in Harvard Business Review, and it's comparing what people define as executive presence in 2012 and how they define it in 2022. So, a 10-year gap.
Wow.
Yeah, some big changes. So, they compared it against gravitas, communication, appearance. So, the first traits or quality or characteristic across all of these stayed the same across the 10 years. But then you start seeing some new interesting things emerge. So, for example, communication. Instead of just command of a room, now we need to know how to command a Zoom room. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of being forceful, oh, now we actually have to be able to listen to learn, like have that sort of mindset when we talk to
Mm-hmm.
people. We need to be more authentic. We need to curate our online presence. So, a lot of shifts towards authenticity. The authenticity appeared twice in 2022 across communication and appearance, and just generally more people centric skills. Less of that stereotypical business suit loud, domineering, and more people focused. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I define in the book executive presence with the three C's. So that's communication, career, brand, and credibility. However you define it, though, I think main point is that it's changing for the better and something that hopefully doesn't have as many of those negative connotations or certain expectations that we might have had even 10 years ago.
Exactly. So you've probably come across this in all your interviewing, but the way a leader or an individual sees himself and the way other people see them might be a little different. And so it's that self-awareness, right? But then also how do I connect with people that aren't like me or different or aren't in my sphere, but also connect with them in a way that they feel valued.
Mhm.
And so many times I think people are walking around with a story in their head about who they are
Yeah.
or about what somebody thinks of them. And none of that's true usually, right? It's just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
how do you break through those barriers and what do you tell them? I mean, that's a lot. That's you broke through barriers by, taking that, okay, I'm going to leave the corporate job and I'm going to try this and I'm going to try this. And it's that test and learn. But what do you see in the workplace when they're still not, they got some blind spots up?
Sure. So chapter one, I mentioned career brand. I think that is really critical for the
Mm,
question that you're asking, Dana. So career
yeah.
brand, what is a career brand? It's essentially a personal brand. And what is a personal brand? It's essentially your reputation. Now, I call it career brand because personal brand, sort of like executive presence, can have some negative connotations to
Yeah.
it or some preconceived notions about what it means. I have to be loud and marketing myself all the time. But career brand more explicitly explains your brand is in service of your career. And then if you think about a brand as a reputation, oh, well, we all already have a brand, don't we? It can either be good, it can be bad, it can be no one knows who you are. That's also a brand in itself, right? And so we can be intentional about building our brand and shaping our reputation, or we can leave it to chance. And what you're talking
Mm,
about is a lot of times we come up with a brand or we think about it, but if it's not aligned with how the outside world sees us, then that's
yeah.
an important disconnect to be aware of. So I talk about the EPIC career brand framework to help us think through it. So experiences, personality, identity, community. People forget that C piece. Your community needs to know and see you the way that you want to be seen. And they also need to be talking about you when you're not there, right? And being the voice
Mhm.
for you. And so it takes some time to think through. It will evolve over the course of your career. But super, super important. This is what I wish I would have known at LinkedIn, right? I was hardworking, dependable, positive attitude, but to be a leader, you have to be strategic, visionary, great cross-functional collaborator and whatnot. So there was definitely a big disconnect there.
But you figured it out, and you figured out what
In
you needed to.
retrospect, yeah.
Yeah, but that and I think it's like kind of what you're talking about, just getting on social media or getting on LinkedIn. You just got to get out there and try the things, and that's what you did.
Yeah.
So as we look at your book, and it's been out since April, what's one of your favorite stories from the book, either from somebody that you got to write about or somebody that has given you some feedback after they've read it and how it's
Oh
helped
my
them?
gosh. So many. Someone just messaged me on LinkedIn yesterday about how she decided to run her meetings a little bit differently after reading my chapter six on meetings. And she said her team was much more engaged and actually responding to her when she was asking for feedback. And so I thought that was so cool because you want to see the change, right? The immediate change. In terms of great stories, one comes to mind, Carlo De La Fuente. He is an executive at Cisco, and he told me the story about how he was struggling to get promoted. He applied for promotion twice. He got runner-up each time, and
Mm,
what was wrong that he was doing was that there was a constructive piece of feedback in his promotion packet, and he really fixated on that the first two times. And then he thought, hmm, I know a lot of people who are high up and senior who are have good relationships, right, with the decision maker. And let me have them write me a recommendation and really lean into all the positive things. And like you were saying before, it's so easy to fixate on the negative thing or overthink
mhm,
because of the spotlight effect. Oh, everyone's focused on this negative thing or this little
mhm.
stumble that I made. But when we can really lean into our strengths, I just loved that how he was smart about it. He found the sponsors, he really focused on his strengths, and then he ended up getting promoted.
That's amazing. Okay, love that story. But I want to go back just a bit because you talked about meetings and people hate meetings.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's like we're going to have a meeting, and then we're going to have the meeting after the meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what was your advice in chapter six on the meeting? It was chapter six
Chapter
that was
6.
so helpful.
Yeah, a lot of advice in there. I made this joke in the chapter. I said, this chapter is going to be short and sweet, just like meetings should be, which I wholeheartedly believe. Okay, I'll share the few things that I think are like quickest impact, quickest change. One, have an agenda, but not just an agenda of, oh, we're going to talk about this. It's we're going to have an agenda. We're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. We're going to spend 3 minutes on X, 5 minutes on Y, 10 minutes on Z. Just be really prescriptive. It helps people
Mm,
stay on track. You can even go deeper than that. Okay, within X, Y, and Z, I have these questions. This person needs to come prepared with this. And so just making sure everyone is set up for success in the meeting so that it will be productive. And then the introverts love having the agenda so they can
yeah,
be
know
prepared
what to
and plan
talk about.
ahead. Exactly. So that's one. And the other second thing that I think is really impactful and super easy to do is to define rules of engagement. And so that is
Mm-hmm.
saying we are getting on a video call, or it's hybrid, or it's in person. How do I want people to contribute? Is it in the chat? Do people need to raise their virtual hand to speak? Are people just muting and unmuting? Like, hopefully not that one because that's very overwhelming if it's a big group. But I need to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that everyone can participate and everyone's voice gets heard. And I need to acknowledge the chat if I'm going to say that you can use the chat, right? So just keeping that structure up front, I think makes everyone feel included, and there's just less chaos.
And there's so much power in learning because we're all on Zoom or on different, some kind of device every day where we're looking,
Yeah.
but we're not with each other. And
Hmm.
so the hand movements that I've seen you
Yes,
use a lot of that, that is so powerful.
it
And I think
is.
also just being able to give expectations ahead of time and letting people feel that they're in that space with you. So I love that. Well, as we get ready to round out, it's almost time to close down. I just want to make sure that you've given us so much, Lorraine. Is there anything in this book that you didn't get to share that you want to make sure our listeners hear about today? So that as they go buy the book and have it as their little guidebook for presents.
Yeah, yeah. I think the main thing I would say is there's going to be something in there for everyone. So, like I said, I love talking about a lot of different topics, from meetings to public speaking to communication to executive presence, to being a manager and thinking like a leader and a manager. So, there's a lot of additional resources that come with the books. There's plenty of QR codes throughout. So, really want people to, like you said, have this be a practical, tactical guide. People should be able to take action during, while reading, right after, and make that immediate change, which is very important to me. And so happy to hear that so many are feeling that already through the messages I've been getting.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations. And
Thank you.
congratulations because not only you're a difference maker and you're making an impact and you really you found your place. You found but the message here is you can't sit back and wait for somebody to do it for you. You got
Yep.
it
Yep.
right. Changing me changes
Yes.
everything, right? So
Yeah.
a really good example of that. And we're so honored to have you on the show and share the book. And where can people find you, Lorraine? What is LinkedIn the best way, or what do you recommend?
Definitely LinkedIn. I would love to get any messages and notes from people who heard us on this podcast and who read the book. I have a newsletter, weekly newsletter, Career Bites, bite-sized tips to supercharge your career in 3 minutes or less. That's at
Wow.
lorrainekaylee.com/subscribe because we're also busy, so I want to make it short and sweet. And then LinkedIn learning courses, I have 19 out. Most of those are nano courses, so 10 minutes or less. And then the book can be bought anywhere that books are sold.
That's amazing. All right. Well, keep creating great content and do what you're doing. I can just tell you're radiating from that. So
Thank you.
thank you. It's great having you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Mhm.